Hello and welcome to the Sunlight Media Podcast. I'm your host, Angelo Frisina, founder and CEO of Sunlight Media. Today's guest is award-winning composer and sound designer, Jeffery Alan Jones from Alan Audio Works.
Hey Jeff, thanks for joining us here today.
Glad to be on, Angelo. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a while. I mean, I know we go back quite a while. I was actually looking at our work history earlier today, and I think the first project we worked on together was way back in June 2012. So it's like 8 years ago now.
Wow, we're coming up on 10. Look at that. Time flies.
Time flies indeed, yeah. And I think when we first started out, Alan Audio Works was a relatively new project for you. It was kind of something that you're just kind of getting off the ground. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly the website portion of it was, you helped me take it up to the next level, but been working in that capacity since, like, I would say late 1990s, early 2000s, some level.
Great. And yeah, every time I open up Facebook and browse around, I see you posting some, information about a new, TV show or film production that you're working on. Sounds like you're keeping real busy. That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it's been incredible. The last few years has just completely blown up for me on the film front and on the music front. And last year was just the best year I've ever had. And my company, Alan Audio Works, as well. We produced so many movies last year. I can't even count them all at this point. And it was just a great year. And then, one film begets another great film. And you meet these people on one film, and they take you to another film. And, the bottom line is just doing great work and having great relationships. And, one thing leads to another.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think it was one particular film that you worked on which really kind of snowballed into a lot of other productions, or was it just kind of like your client base kind of grew naturally? How did it all transition into the volume of work you seem to be getting now?
Well, it's baby steps. Obviously, starting with short films. I did a lot of short films, AFI, USC, UCLA, and met several filmmakers there, and they started leveling up and brought me with them, and I started leveling up and meeting more filmmakers. One thing led to another. I did a film called Cooties with Elijah Wood and Rainn Wilson, which was produced by Spectravision a few years back, and that was kind of a gate opener. That led to another film called The Boy with Craig McNeil directing. And that eventually led to another film called Most Beautiful Island, which won South by Southwest Best Narrative Feature in 2017. So that kind of award really gets you a lot of attention. I got my first big soundtrack album out of that movie, and then I've got a lot of work related to that movie because of that. And since then, it's been taken off.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm looking at the information on your website here, and it's is it mainly like sound design that you work on? I know you have a studio where you can do like full productions and bands and stuff, but it sounds like primarily it's composing and sound design that you work in most of the time.
Yeah, it's a combination of composition and sound design and anything audio post-production. My idea is, as a composer, I think of sound and music as one thing. I don't separate them. Beating a trash can lid versus playing a violin, they're just two different sound and timbres for me. So I like to combine that into just this soundscape that just creates a sensory experience for the ears. And it's I don't hold anything back. I mean, nothing's off the table. So all the way, from the dialogue to the effects editing, to the Foley, to the props, to the background editing, of course, with the music, and then mixing that all together, which is the final mix, is all part of this process of creating a soundscape for a movie. And and the music is just another part of that. So you pull this all together, it just sounds amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty interesting process. So, I mean, how much freedom do you get when it comes to, composing and creating sounds? I mean, does a director or producer kind of give you a roadmap of what they want, and you kind of just, add your stuff to it, or is it like a, open book and you can kind of do whatever you like?
Well, sometimes it's an open book, sometimes it's not.
Right.
Certainly there's, a meeting of the minds initially, and we decide on, okay, what's the direction of the film? What kind of story are we trying to tell here? What do we want to say without saying it? We want to bring out the subtext of the film. And those kind of discussions happen, and then we start collaborating that way. And I go off and start working on my thing, and then it's sort of a back and forth until we get to the point where we're both happy with what's happening.
Okay, so it's kind of, you're going to got to keep it flexible, and I guess it depends on the project and the particular taste, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, right. At the end of the day, it's what I love about filmmaking is that it's collaborative. And I love collaborating with other artists. And, on a film, you're working with so many different creatives. It's a fascinating process from writing, directing, acting, producing, costume, makeup. You have all these different parts of this puzzle that come together. And I'm on the end of that in post-production. I've sort of got to bring it home. So then I, elevate what has been done on production to this place where we want the film to be through the sound and the mix.
Right. And then how far in advance do you know that you're going to be working on a particular production? Is it, months in advance, like even before they start shooting, that once the shooting's over, you're going to be working on post? Or are you generally approached after all the shooting and everything's done and it's time to go on post-production? Like, how far in advance do you generally know what you're going to work on?
Sometimes I get to know a year or even 2 years in advance. I get word about this project and, we're working on it. We're working on the financing. It's being produced. We're working on the script. I'm brought on in the script writing stage, and I'll actually get to review scripts and comment and contribute on that level. Other times it's like, I'll get a call and we need to start tomorrow. So it can go both ways, and you have to be flexible and prepared enough to take it on.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's interesting you mentioned that you're sometimes you're given a script. So why is that? Why does a sound designer need to read a script?
Well, there's so much that a sound designer can bring to a film and a story. Certainly sound cues and pacing can contribute. So if I read a script, I can see, okay, this setting is here. What can we do to enhance this? Or maybe we can stretch this scene longer just by sitting on this beautiful shot of open hills, listening to wind and light insects humming. That might help the transition here and help the pacing of the script. So you don't always need to read word for word for word for word and pound through a script. There needs to be time for the story to breathe. And that's where the sound comes in. And those are the kind of comments that I would bring to the table. And amongst many others, what are the sounds of the feet going to make? What kind of room are they in? Are they walking on concrete? Are they walking on metal? What is the environment that they're in? Are they in like a deep, dark cave that's wet and dripping? Or are they out in the desert where it's very hot and dry? All these sensations are enhanced by what you hear. So those are the kind of notes that I would contribute to a script and add in terms of direction from the sound point of view.
Yeah, right. That's an interesting concept, yeah. And then when the actual, are you involved in actually recording any of the production? Like, do you show up on location and actually record dialogue or sounds and stuff, or is it strictly all just in post that you do?
I'm strictly in post, but I certainly have been on production, and I communicate with production sound mixers as much as possible to get what I want in post, right? Ideally, you're in communication with them so that you can collaborate on what you need to get. Oh, let's make sure that you're in this very unique space. Let's make sure that you get footsteps up the stairs there. Those are going to be really hard to create. Let's make sure that you get the space of this beautiful cathedral that you're in. I want you to capture 2 minutes of room tone so we can use that. You're on the other side of the world. There's very unique sounds and insects and life. We want some raw sounds of that. Can you please get me more of this? Recently, I finished a film with Alec Baldwin and Thomas Jane called Crown Vic, and it's a story about two cops in LA, a rookie cop and a veteran cop. So we wanted to capture the sounds of LA at night. This story happens all in one night. So we went out and we actually captured the sounds at night, various parts of LA, and recorded LA from all times of the night, 11, 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And you wouldn't believe the kind of sounds that are rumbling through the city at night. It's just fascinating. And we incorporated that into the movie.
Yeah, I guess sounds like that would really capture the atmosphere, right? And give you a sense of like, oh, I'm here, I'm in this car, or I'm standing on the street walking along and I can hear everything.
Absolutely.
That's really important. Yeah, to capture that atmosphere. That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's different levels of that, because there's a perspective from inside the police car. You hear the ambience of the police car. You hear the chatter on the radio. Then you hear the immediate sounds of driving by this, driving by that. Maybe some people are yelling on the streets. And then you hear even farther sounds where it's just the ambient hum of the city. It's like breathing almost. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And another interesting thing I see you do is that you're actually playing live sometimes to the movie or the TV show that you're working on. So I see a big screen in front of you and a scene is playing out, and there you are on your keyboard and you're actually playing something live over that scene. Does that happen a lot, or you generally pre-record that?
That's usually, me scoring a movie. Typically these days, if you're not using an orchestra, you're using everything virtually in your computer, which is basically sampled sounds and any sound you can create. The sampled sounds today on computers are just phenomenal, So you're able to really create a lot of anything as a composer these days. And I love it because from my point of view, anything goes in music. So I combine everything I can. And yeah, I'm typically scoring to picture with my keyboard. And, I sort of look at the scene. I decide, okay, where are the points that I want to hit? What's the mood I want to hit? What do I want to stress? And where's the tension? Where's the resolution? And then I will score that scene accordingly.
Okay. And what about other instruments? Has there ever been a situation where, a director or something's like, okay, I want this live, I want a full band, I want vocalists? Have you ever been in that situation where you had to actually capture a full band and put that into a scene as well?
Absolutely. I think that comes back down to budget. These days, everything, as producers know, oh, well, we don't need to hire anybody. One person can do everything. Obviously, as a composer, I prefer to have 110-piece orchestra. So
Right.
as budget permits and as need permits, we do bring in live players. I typically have live musicians on every soundtrack that I do. I just finished a movie called The Old Man and the Pond, starring Tobin Bell, which was set in the South. And I used various harmonicas, live harmonica playing through that. It just, on top of what I scored, it's just beautiful, along with various different guitars and dobros. So it just brings that human element into the score. And that's one thing I love about collaborating with musicians and bringing them in on films is it brings that human element. I don't want to compose strictly straight out of computer. I prefer to collaborate with, people. And I typically do that. And as a pianist, I've played professionally my entire life. I have a lot of friends and fellow musicians I've played with over the years that I can call on to help out with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your professional music career. I know you're a pianist, and right now you have a jazz trio. Is that correct?
Yes, and same thing. We've played, 25 years together, all over the world, and it's sort of an outgrowth of going to school and playing classical music and sort of evolving into jazz and playing professionally everywhere. It's just been a great ride.
So let's go back to the early days then. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Where did you learn music? Talk a little bit about that.
I was born in Long Beach, grew up, of course, like a lot of kids, just playing sports, and I was in band. I remember being in marching band. I played snare drum as well as in junior high school. And from there, I started playing drums in my church choir. We started touring around, and it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got my first drum set. And then in high school, I formed a band called the Manta Rays, and we were very, very successful. We played all around and did a little bit of touring. It was sort of a surf band, surf rock band, and that sort of got me into performing. So I kept doing that and veered back to piano. I started playing piano when I was about 5 years old, and I got sort of tired of lugging my drums everywhere. For these gigs, I was always the first one there, the last one to leave, and I started playing piano again because I thought, well, maybe I could play some keyboards. And then I started playing piano and keys. One thing led to the other, and after high school, I moved to Hawaii with my best friend to surf. We were big surfers in high school. And there I had sort of an epiphany of, I want to do music. I don't care how or why, I just want to do music. So I moved back and I started studying music, piano specifically, and just got bit by the classical bug. And the rest is history. I studied classical music and started practicing. I remember about 8 to 10 hours a day, every day for many, many years. And went to college at Cal State University, Long Beach. Got my bachelor's of music in piano performance, which is all classical music, and my master's in composition. And then during that time, I was playing professionally. I would be playing in restaurants and hotels, and that's sort of when my jazz group started to develop. And then we started playing around in restaurants and hotels and gigs and weddings and parties. And I mean, honestly, for a good 10, 15 years, that was the major part of my life. So all the money I made from playing gigs, I I put into my studio. And and now, my studio is huge and far-reaching and fascinating. But I've always played and I've always composed. It's been sort of a one hand meets the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was your desire in, what got you into classical music? Was it the challenge of learning intricate pieces, or just the music itself, or a little bit of both? How did that passion for classical music kick off?
I met a teacher at my community college who, for whatever reason, took a liking to me and my talent and inspired me. And he really sort of gave me the groundwork of classical music. And from there, I just got bit by the bug. Yeah, it was the challenge. It was the beauty of the music. At that time, I was playing a lot of Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, Liszt, Scriabin. The list goes on, sort of the main classical composers. And I was just fascinated in not only playing the music, but understanding the music, understanding the composers and their lives and what caused them to write the music and that sort of thing. So it was a big hook for me. And then from there, I auditioned to get in to Long Beach State. I got in and kept studying there to get my bachelor's degree in piano performance.
It's amazing. Yeah, I guess the classical training and the music kind of coincides with the film sound design as well, because it's really a matter of understanding compositions and what kind of mood they portray, and then kind of visualizing that as a scene in a movie as well. So I guess that kind of really helps you create the right mood and sounds for the stuff that you work on. Do you think a majority of that is based around your knowledge of classical music?
Yes, I do. I think that, like you said, creating a soundscape for a movie is composition on some level. It's understanding space, rhythm, time, tempo, pitch, and my music skills obviously contribute to that. As a sound designer, I believe I have an advantage because I'm also a composer. There's a lot of quote unquote sound designers out there who have no music skills. They're just sort of technical.
Right.
My approach comes basically from composition and music. So when I create a soundscape to a movie, it's very, I want to say, musical.
That's great. And then at what point in your career did you start to really, like jazz and get into jazz? Was it a particular artist or album? How did you transition from the classical to jazz piano?
Well, the same first teacher that introduced me to classical music also started feeding me some jazz standards on the side. And then I was just hooked. And you asked me, do I have influence? There are so many. Nat King Cole, Bill Evans are some very big early influences. Miles Davis, Wynton Kelly, Herbie Hancock, just these guys, basically from the 50s and 60s, bebop and post-bop era that I sort of fell in love with. And that's sort of what my trio does. We sort of play standards and songs that, are kind of bebop and post-bop style jazz. And that's what we love to do, and that's what's in my blood, and that's what I feel, and that's what I love to listen to. So it's just sort of hooked me. And then there's this whole thing of playing, classical and jazz, because they're two different specialties. But they help each other. I remember once on one of my classical recitals, I was playing a Beethoven sonata, and I'm very, very technical. I mean, these things are really insane, and they're all memorized. But, some of these sonatas are 20, 30 minutes long. They're very intense. And I remember one little section, I had a slight little memory slip, and just naturally, my hands were just able to cover it and get me to the next section, because I just have the ability to improvise, which is what jazz is.
what
And
jazz is. Yeah.
it was funny, after the concert, I went up to my teacher, Edith Hirschtel, who's I love dearly, my classical teacher in college, and I said, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you were amazing. It sounded amazing." I'm like, "What about the Beethoven, the scherzo? Didn't you hear that?" She's like, "What?" She didn't even know I missed it. I
That's
covered it
awesome.
so well. So I thought that was really funny. It just like kind of a lesson to myself. It's like, okay, I guess I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I guess once you get to a certain level with music and, on an instrument, you can learn how to cover your mistakes. You think it's a mistake, but your hands kind of go off in a little pattern, and it becomes an improvisational piece. So the more
Yeah,
experience you get, the more training and more music that you learn, you begin to learn how to cover mistakes. And it's a great feeling when you get to experience that.
yeah, and it's sort of the thing of the music's in you enough to be able to do that, right? I mean,
Right.
I've
Right.
seen concerts where people have a memory slip and they just freeze. I mean,
Mm,
and
mm,
everybody can see it, and you're sitting there, and it feels like it's so terrifying. Um,
yeah.
but when you have the ability to improvise, thanks to my jazz improvisation, it's always
Right.
there. I could sit down and play anything, anywhere, anytime, and not worry about it. And also playing in hotels and restaurants has helped, because I did that every night for years, and you
Mm,
just get to
mm.
the point where your hands just flow, and you can pretty much play anything.
Right. Right. Yeah, I remember my days as a touring musician. Sometimes you're in a situation where you're playing the same tunes, night in, night out, and after a while you're kind of there, but you're also switched off at the same time, because you're thinking about, what I have to do tomorrow, and what's coming up next week, and it's like, oh, that's right, I've got to take care of that. It's kind of like you're on autopilot. I mean, you're on stage in front of hundreds of people, and there's lights and everything going on, and your hands and mind are just doing two separate things. It's a kind of a bizarre sensation sometimes.
It really is, but I've been there too many times. You're either tired, or you're thinking about this, or you're thinking about that, and you're just on autopilot.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
and you get off stage and someone says, "Oh man, that cool lick you played in that tune in the bridge part," and you're like, What did I play?"
yeah,
What
what
happened
just
to that lick?
happened?
What happened? I don't remember. What tune? Did we play that tune?
Yeah, and
That's cool.
that's the fun part about it. And through school, I ended up arranging and touring throughout China and Taiwan and Asia, and eventually started doing conducting tours over there, whereas I was actually conducting um, tours in
Mm.
China. So,
Yeah.
one of the big moments, I remember conducting the National Chinese Orchestra. I mean, this is an orchestra of like 115 people. It's massive.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah, so that was a great privilege and honor. But a quick story about that is, I remember going over there in the rehearsals the week we're coming up for this big giant concert. This was in Beijing. And I'm with the orchestra rehearsing in sort of a small room for 100 and some odd people. And, they sounded really good. Um, but, I didn't know what to expect. So I'm just, doing the best I can. And nobody spoke English. The first cellist did. So she sort of was my interpreter and gave me sort of the voice of the orchestra.
Hmm.
So I remember going on stage the first night of the first concert. Everybody's out there, the orchestra's set, they bring me out, I come out, I bow, I turn around. The first note is a fortissimo, which is very, very loud. So we rehearsed this in rehearsals the prior week many, many times. It sounded good, but I raised my hands and I hit it, and this group practically blew me off the stage. It
Wow.
went from in rehearsals a level 2 to about a level 25
Oh,
in terms of
damn.
intensity. So
Mm.
that was quite a shock. I had no idea. that was going to
I bet.
happen. So I was just like, oh my gosh, it was like the best seat in the house, right? I'm right there
Oh yeah.
in the conductor spot on the podium conducting and just hearing this massive sound come at me. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get another hour and a half of this. So,
Amazing.
yeah, so the night went on and it was just like complete heaven conducting,
Mm.
listening to the music as I'd never heard
And
it
what
before.
music was that? Was that some of your own compositions, or are they more like classical standards?
There were a few different tours. I did a tour of film music, which was a lot of fun, and it
Uh-huh.
included several of my scores and a lot of different types of scores from films. Uh, I remember doing Gladiator, Schindler's List, Hook,
Mm.
Titanic, scores like that. And then I did
Mm.
another tour that was completely show tune based, where I remember doing things like West Side Story, um,
Mm.
Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables, things like that.
Mm.
So it was quite a variety. And the Chinese just love that. They love music. And it was just such a
Mm.
thrill and honor to go there and conduct and perform.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, sounds
Fantastic.
amazing. Yeah, absolutely. 119-piece orchestra, man. Not many people say they can have worked with an orchestra that size. Humongous.
No, they can't, especially these days. And yeah, it's one of those moments you never forget. And it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. That's good to hear. So your jazz trio is still out and about. What are you doing currently? I know that there's not a lot of live gigs right now because of the whole COVID situation. So, I mean, are you guys getting together and writing, or are you doing the occasional gig? What's the situation with the trio?
Well, now with COVID, everything's been completely shut down. We've had several
Yeah.
gigs that were lined up now canceled. Um,
Mm.
so not a lot going on there. I am, however, working on a project with the Smithsonian Institute on Duke Ellington. So I'm writing and
Mm.
arranging some Duke Ellington music to be collaborated with a filmmaker. And
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of kind of my home jazz project at the moment, because there's just really nothing going on in the world. I mean, and who
Yeah,
knows when that's going to happen.
exactly. So, is it a film about Duke Ellington?
No, what it is, it's called the Seven Tones Project, produced by Derek Greer. And basically they're taking selected musicians to collaborate with a selected filmmaker slash director to combine a new arrangement of a Duke Ellington song, which I'm doing, with
Uh-huh.
a visual pictorial, um, whether it's moving pictures or pictorial or something like that together. So it's sort of
Mm.
a collaboration sort of thing.
Okay.
And yeah, this is going to be at the Smithsonian, I think next year, but I'm a part of that, and that's really exciting.
So, is it going to be a pre-recorded studio thing, or are you actually going to the Smithsonian and recording there live?
No, yeah, exactly. It's going to be pre-recorded.
Oh, okay. Right, right. And so
So I'm
you're just
working on
doing
that now.
a version of a Duke Ellington tune is what you're going to be recording. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm going to do something different. We hear Duke Ellington, who's one of the greatest composers of all time. I'm going to take one of his songs and do something really fun and different and unique with it. And
Mm.
maybe even veer into a little bit of the sound design world. We'll see.
Mm. Is that going to be with your trio, or is it something
Yeah,
you do on
probably
your
the
own?
nucleus of the sound will be my trio. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to bring in some other instruments and other sounds to mix with that.
Right, right. That sounds like a fun project, man. I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. And then in the meantime, yeah, as far as playing live, it's crazy. Everything has been shut
Yeah,
down. It's
yeah, it's terrible. I've got so many musician friends that are, stuck at home with no gigs, and they're kind of scratching their head thinking, what do I do, man? Do I continue down this music path? Do I need to find another career, or what's going on? There's just so many unknowns in that world, and it's terrible to see.
A lot of unknowns, but on the film side of things, for me, it's been insane. I've been nonstop.
Oh wow!
Since
So
the beginning
COVID
of
has
the
had
year.
no effect on your sound design production work. That
Yeah,
hasn't slowed
the
down at all.
music and sound design for film has just been nonstop. COVID
Mm,
hit, and we're still working on things that were pre-COVID, and we're post-production. So if a film is in the
right.
can, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's no social distancing needed. I'm usually working alone.
Right.
Um, yeah, so it's been very, very busy in a good way.
That's good. That's really good to hear. Speaking about your work environment, I've been watching some of your Facebook videos here too, and it looks like you like to keep fit and work out in between your audio takes. Talk a little bit about that. I know you're a fitness guy, and you also have a gym. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've always played sports, and I've always liked being physically fit. Like I said, too, after a lot of sports early on, football, baseball, basketball, sort of the obvious things, wrestling, I got into surfing. That was a big part of my life. Surfed
Mm-hmm.
competitively. Um, and then from there, I was sitting in a piano chair. So it
Right.
was quite a change. I realized,
Mm.
I got to start working out. And then I started doing my own thing, going to the gym, working out where I can.
Mm-hmm.
2008, 2009, discovered CrossFit. And I started doing CrossFit, which was, I thought, fantastic. I had a lot of fun. It was energizing and met a lot of really good friends. And a friend of mine, Miguel Gerardo, and I opened a gym called CrossFit BPM.
Mm-hmm.
And that's now been up and running for 5 years and going very well. Now with COVID,
And
it's
where is
all
that?
shut down, but that's in
Right.
Lake California.
Okay.
So Long Beach, basically.
Long Beach area. Cool. Cool. And so, I mean, the reason that you have, barbells and dumbbells in your studio and you kind of pick them up occasionally, is that more for energizing yourself and kind of getting the blood rushed and feeling inspired again to continue working? Is that part of the reason you have some of your workout gear in your studio?
Well, first, right now, it's because COVID's here, right? And there's nowhere to
Right.
go. So
Right.
you get a workout when it's a reminder of like, you've got to work out or you can't just sit in a chair all day.
Right. Right.
But
Got to keep the
yeah,
body moving.
exactly. And exercise definitely stimulates your blood flow and your creative
Mm.
thinking. I mean, even going out, and I try to do this 3 times a day when I'm stuck in the studio all day, is take a walk. Take a 20
Right.
minute walk. It just, and I always come back refreshed with a clear mind and ready to go.
Yeah. It's amazing what exercise can do. It just relieves a lot of things, stress, anxiety,
Mhm.
energizes you. It helps you sleep and relax too after a workout. It's an amazing feeling, and I think everyone should get involved in some form of exercise, no matter what type of work you do. I think it's very important on many different levels. That's good to see.
Yeah, and it's all positive. Just you rattled off a
Yeah.
bunch of great things that it does, but yeah, it's very stimulating. You sleep better, you breathe
Hmm.
better, you think better, you're more creative, you're energized. Just there's so many good things and good
Mm.
reasons to be doing exercise to complement everything else you do in life. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's
And
just
then,
been a big part of my life, and I have fun with it. I think that's the end of the day. You know, it's something that you want to have fun with. Otherwise, what's the point?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what's the current situation? I mean, I haven't been keeping up to it much myself, but what's the situation with, you know, gyms and CrossFit places and those kind of things opening up in LA County again? I mean, do you have any updates or information on that at all?
Well, yes and no. It's our governor was supposed to come out with guidelines this week on how boutique studios can start opening, and with the riots, I think he's a little distracted right now. So
Yeah.
everybody, speaking of gym owners and small studio owners, is just clamoring at the bit to get back opened up. I mean, I don't know how they're going to be able to survive.
Yeah.
We're doing okay, but I don't know how a lot of these, even the bigger gyms, how are they going to survive?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I'm a member at Gold's Gym downtown, and that's a humongous gym. I mean, they've got a swimming pool, and they've got, the cycling room and the yoga rooms and a whole big area for weights and machines. And, I could imagine what their monthly rent bill is, and the overheads involved in keeping that place open. So I really hope they don't shut down, because it's a great gym and it's very convenient for me because it's right in the corner from my office. But you've got to think, it's like, how long can these companies or these gyms survive without income? It's so bizarre.
Yeah, and then going forward, what does the reopening look like? Because they're going to
Right.
now have to cut time in half. They're going to have to create social distancing within the studios. They're going to have people come in on intervals. I mean, you're cutting your clientele in half.
Right.
How are you going to maintain?
Yeah.
I just don't know how it's going to play out. It's scary.
It is very scary. And it's the same for a lot of other businesses too. I mean, if you have a hair or nail salon, even a restaurant cafe with seating, how are those people going to survive? Great, yeah, they may be able to open their doors, but that doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to jump off their couch and flock out to a restaurant or a gym. Everyone's kind of still on edge and a bit uncertain. And there's also the financial part of it as well. It's like people can't afford to just go out and splurge on, a fancy meal and stuff like that. So it's going to be a really interesting transitional period, later this year, to see, how it all kind of plays out. And I really feel bad for a lot of those businesses that have, poured their heart and soul into opening a salon or a restaurant or a bar or a club, and now they're like, God, what do we do? It's heartbreaking, man, and I really feel
it really is. I feel it. How can you ask a business owner to cut their clients in half, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you got to cut your revenue in half and still pay all the same bills that you've been paying all along. So how does that add up?
I don't know how that's going to work. I just don't know how it's going to work. It's not like they're making huge profits and their margins are large. It's like, restaurants, they're just getting by, and now you got to cut them in half.
Well, it's all about volume, isn't it? Because you've got such a large overhead, so it's about volume. How many people can you get in the door? How many meals can you serve? How many, hairstyles can you cut? And if you've reduced that by half, then obviously, you're in trouble, because your bills are still going to be the same. Maybe your staffing bills are slightly less. You don't have to hire as many staff members because you're not serving as many people. But, utilities, rent, stock, food, all of that kind of remains the same. So, yeah, man, it's an interesting time, no doubt. And obviously these riots aren't helping either.
No, not at all. And like you mentioned, how many people are actually going to want to go out into the world and go to a restaurant or go to a CrossFit gym or go to a Pilates studio?
Right.
They're just not. They're not going to feel safe.
Right. Yep. There's many factors to consider. People are still concerned with the virus, and then there's the financial expense as well. And everyone's kind of hanging tight onto their money, and they're not going to be ready to go out to restaurants and maybe not even renew their gym membership. Who knows? But
No,
certainly
a lot of people have canceled their gym memberships. I mean, it's money, right? They've lost their job.
yeah,
How can they afford to pay for a membership?
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
such a dynamic situation that
right.
it does not look good.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And I guess we just got to be grateful, you and I, that we're in a situation where we can continue working by running our studios and doing the web and audio production and stuff. But fortunately, there's a lot of people that can't, and I really do feel for them. So hopefully, things change for the positive sooner than later.
Yeah, I'm with you, Angelo. I'm very blessed to be able to work in the industry I'm in and be able to work remotely, because it's been sort of business as usual for me. It's not much has changed. Not many people are coming into the studio for obvious reasons, but
Right.
typically 90% of the time prior to COVID, I was in here alone anyways, composing,
Right.
scoring, or mixing, and
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of like day-to-day client interaction. There are mix reviews and recording sessions and things like that, but as you know, we can get around that.
Right.
So I can still work remotely without a problem, and have been consistently. I mean, I've been as busy as ever, fortunately.
Yeah, that's a great thing, man. That's a really good thing. So tell me, what are you working on now? Anything exciting that we can look forward to?
A few things. I just finished a movie called Wilford 616. It's sort of a grifter slash horror movie, really fun. I'm about ready to start another movie called Chasing Colors, which is a documentary about one of the rarest diamonds in the world. Very fascinating documentary. It's going to be narrated by Richard Dreyfuss, which is really cool. So he'll be coming into the studio. And I worked with Richard also on a movie called Bayou Caviar a couple years ago that was directed by Cuba Gooding Jr. So Cuba starred in the movie. Richard Dreyfuss was in the movie. It was kind of cool to have a movie that had two Oscar award-winning actors in it. I had a lot of fun. And Cuba directed the movie, so I got to work very close with him on his vision for the score and the sound design.
That's great.
Yeah, and then,
keep me posted on that. I was going to say, keep me posted on that documentary. I'm a big documentary fan, so let me know.
You'll love this one, Angelo. Yeah, this is a really, really good one. So yeah, that's about to kick off within a few days here. So we're excited about that.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, it sounds like you're keeping yourself busy, which is great, and you're working on some very exciting projects, and it's great to see. If anyone wants to learn more about Jeff and his work, you can check him out online. The website's AlanAudioWorks.com. There's a lot of great information and scores and credits and pictures on there, so go check that out. You can also look up Jeff on Facebook. Where are you on Instagram here? I see you've got an IMDb account, and what's this other one? SoundCloud. So you're definitely available online. Anywhere else people can look up your work?
Well, I think today we live in an age in which the internet is where you go for everything.
Right.
So that's where the presence is. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, my website. That's how I try to update what I'm working on into the world as I can. And more, that's where it's going. I mean, even now with everybody working from home, with all these tech companies, this is the future. I think everybody's going to be moving to home to work, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my wife's a ballet teacher. She's most of her life had to go into a studio or at a school and teach a whole bunch of, kids in a class. Now she's stuck at home. She's in her room. She's doing a Zoom call with kids that are at home, and she's teaching ballet and dance through video conferencing, which is quite bizarre. We never thought we'd be at a stage where we're doing that, but a lot of businesses are kind of changing the way they conduct business. It's an interesting time.
Yeah, and we're doing a little bit of that here in the studio too. We'll have Zoom dial-ins, and people will actually sort of sit in on the mix via Zoom. That's been kind of interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, this conversation's been great, Jeff. I really enjoyed talking with you today. Hopefully we can do it again sometime and maybe come into your studio and check that out and look at some of the work that you're doing. But yeah, I really appreciate your time on the call, and this has been great.
Thanks for having me, Angelo. I had a lot of fun.
Anytime, Jeff. You enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll chat again very soon.
Very good, man. Cheers.
Cheers. Take care.